The human spirit is unconquerable. We are individuals and we are sovereign, born with unlimited potential, gifted from our Creator. Our mission is to break free from the systems that bind us.
I volunteer as tribute.
We strive for peace and prosperity and overcome all challenges, roadblocks, and obstacles. We are empowered because we think for ourselves and we act for ourselves. We are self-reliant and independent, but guided by the wisdom of those who share our values.
What possible difference can I make?
There is no government, no ruler, nor ideas that are able to stop us. We are driven to succeed because we seek political freedom, financial freedom, and spiritual freedom.
It's all for nothing if you don't have freedom.
This is Mike Corbell, and you are listening to the Invictus Mind. Well, hey, Pete, how you doing today?
I'm doing really well. How are you?
Doing well. You know, I was looking at the first time that you and I recorded together. It was February 15th of 2020.
Before the world ended.
Exactly, before the apocalypse. And, you know, I was looking forward to zombies walking around after the virus. We didn't get the flesh-eating zombies, but we got mindless, brainless idiots walking around telling us what to do.
Yeah, I think these zombies are more dangerous because you can't kill them.
Right, exactly. You know, Pete, as a podcast, you probably know that a lot of people listen to you all the time, and they kind of get that sense of getting to know somebody. You know, I appreciate the conversation this second time around because though we did talk about a year ago, I feel like over the last year, I got to know you a lot more just from listening to your take on the state of the world today. It's it's one of those things that you're the kind of person that I want to exemplify. Although I've heard you say this a couple times on your program that you're the same person on screen as you are off screen. A lot of people say that they put a persona on a podcast or on a radio program, but I'm normally a peaceful guy, but man, this last year has just gotten me so upset, and I kind of live vicariously through your black-pilledness. But Peter, more than that, I want to talk about not just the state of the world and why everyone could be pissed off, but what are some of the things we can actually do to look at a white pill perspective.
That's what I've been trying to hit on a lot lately. Is trying to get out of the black pill, but I just recorded an interview for my podcast not an hour ago, and the person I was interviewing, we both admitted that we go one day we're white pilled, one day we're black pilled. It just, I guess, really depends on what we see in the world. And right now, it's, you just look at the way people are reacting. You look at the way how people have changed, how the culture has changed over the last year. I didn't really think that there was a culture of liberty or freedom or that anyone would rise up and say, we're not going to take this and everything. But I didn't think that it was so quickly going to become, we're just going to lay down for this and whatever you say is fine. And that's really what we've seen that there, as my friend Karen Keener says, there is no line. Americans don't have a line anymore. There's no line in the sand. They're, probably, I would say, I would really like to know the number of companies, quote unquote, private companies in the United States who rely on government for something. So when you look at that, when you look at how many people are relying on the government for checks, relying on the government for what they think is protection, all these things, you can understand why people would not want to rise up and say enough is enough. And I'm not talking about picking up arms. I mean, I'm talking about the whole idea of saying you just have no authority over my life anymore. I don't care. It seems like they have to embrace government. Every once in a while you see that people, small groups of people here may fight back, but usually those are taken down really quickly or marginalized, called white supremacists, insurrectionists. That's my new favorite thing, is that the word insurrection absolutely has no meaning anymore whatsoever. I mean, it's just bury the word. There's no, insurrection, morons. Morons. People I know who are just morons, who, January 6th was an insurrection attempt. Moron. I'll tell you, you're a moron to your face. It's just, it's really hard, But then you think, okay, I have friends, we get together and we have voluntary interactions and life goes on, and I'm still able to go to the store and buy pretty much things that I want. And hey, maybe that store thing is just some kind of opiate to keep you, to keep you happy and everything. But I would think people like us should really be able to see see hope where there really isn't any. And it's hard sometimes, but it's there.
Well, you live in a state that's literally or virtually been open since the beginning, pretty much. Here in Illinois, we're locked down in what they call phase 4. And who knows if there's a phase 5, phase 5 being, okay, all clear. You can take the mask off your face and you can live a quasi normal life. But I would say about 98% of people in this state are just compliant. And it drives me crazy because I guess I'm a rebel, although I don't look like much. I am. I go into places without a mask and I get those just evil stares. I mean, how do you cope with that when you go around the world?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to expect. I'm going over to Birmingham, Alabama in a couple of weeks, and they had a statewide mask mandate when we didn't, and it's Alabama, for Christ's sake, and I found out this morning I'm going to go to Washington State towards the end of next month. And I'm wondering what that's going to be like. And really because Washington State historically, especially so I'm going to be around the Seattle area. I mean, that's, historically not even left wing, but, just loony left. I don't know what to, Georgia is still, okay, so there are restaurants that are open. There are still restaurants that are doing, most restaurants are still doing every other table, that kind of crap. Still mask mandates going into supermarkets and places like that. And sure, we're open and we're a lot better than other states, but still that change in the culture that, people, I watch people every day, like put their masks on. I watch it, and I don't even think it's a safety thing anymore. I think it's like a security blanket, like a whoopee. Mm-hmm. It's like they're whoopee now. They put it on because it just makes them feel secure. It doesn't make them feel I don't think it even makes them feel safe. I think it just makes them feel secure. And there's a difference. There's a difference in that. You can do something to feel secure and not think it's helping. If you're doing something for safety, you can think that, hey, I have to do this because, my safety is at risk here. My health may be at risk, but security is a different thing. And it really seems like it's become like a security blanket for a lot of people. And that's really sad because it just perpetuates everything. And we've seen the, Tom Woods has done great work on showing how masks don't work, how they'll start a mask mandate here, and then all of a sudden the cases just skyrocket. You expected with the mask mandates at the top of the arc that it would drop down, but no, it's like masks get mandated and then the cases skyrocket. And it's just like, well, then what's the point? Obviously there's something else at play here. And of course the mask holes will tell you that, you're probably just not wearing your mask right, or not enough people are complying and everything. Yeah, but the people who aren't complying, I don't see them dropping dead.
Right.
So it's, it's like, I don't know how. I know a lot of people who have been against this whole thing, and who've basically called it a hoax and everything. And I don't see them dying. It seems like it's the people who are getting sick are the old and the elderly. Mm-hmm. And that's really, when you and anyone else, even younger, gets sick, usually there's something in their past, or there's some kind of, and I hate that I know this word because I didn't really know this term before a year ago, comorbidity. Why did I have to learn that thing? Usually there's something there. So, it's just a change in the culture that I don't think is going away for the most part. I think there's a part of the culture that'll be like, all right, screw this, I'm going to try and go back to as much normal as I can. But I think there's a big enough section of the culture who wants this to go on because it feels like it's giving them some kind of purpose in life.
Right, absolutely. I saw a meme going around social media. I don't know if it was one of yours or not, but they're making distinctions between maskers and anti-maskers. And then I saw another meme that said there's no such thing as an anti-masker. We were here first. You guys are anti-facers.
Yeah, that wasn't me, but that's a good one. I mean, that really it's it's like when I did an episode with Ben Armani recently, and the last episode we did, and he was talking about how they had made an announcement. I forget what it was, what state or what official said that, well, once you have your vaccine passport, things can get back to normal. And he's like, well, that's just ridiculous because we didn't have vaccine passports before. So we're not going back to normal. Going back to normal would be like going back to exactly what it was before this. Now all these things have to be done where you have to wear a mask, or you have to carry this, carry an app on your phone, or you have to carry paperwork with you and everything like that. Well, that's not normal. It's it's like, I mean, I remember when air travel was normal. I'm old enough to remember when people smoked on planes, but I remember when somebody who was picking you up from the airport could meet you at the gate.
Mm-hmm.
After 9/11, that all went away. And we've had the TSA for 20 years now, and they've never caught one terrorist. Over 500 of them have been arrested for theft. And, most of them could not, without a government job like that, could not get a job at McDonald's. So it's basically a jobs program for people who are pedos, who want to touch kids and things like that. I don't know. I don't want a job like that where I have to touch other human beings and pat them down. That sounds terrible to me. Sounds like an invasion of people's privacy. But no, these leches get this job and they're happy to have it. And they feel like, I guess maybe they feel like they're doing something.
Speaking of air travel, I actually have not been on a plane since before the end of the world. I was supposed to go to Costa Rica last year. We had got our passports already up probably around the same time you and I first talked in February. My wife and I got our passports. We're all ready to go to Costa Rica, and then boom, everything just shut down. But now I'm almost afraid to get on a plane because, not only am I a rebel about the mask, but I'm the one who would probably be unlucky enough to pick my nose or something on a plane, and then I'll be put on a no-fly list.
I mean, I've flown, I think, 6 times in the last 6 months, and I started flying again in September, and then I've flown a bunch of times since then. And I mean, of course you have to wear a mask on the plane. If you put it down below your nose, you may get the wrath of the, I'll call them what they are, stewardesses. And but I mean, for the most part, for a while there, air travel was great, man, because it was like there was hardly anybody on the plane, and it was, the airports were empty as heck and everything. You had to love it and everything. But still, it's not normal. It's not what it was. I mean, to me, if for air travel to be normal, you have to go back to pre 9/11. But I mean, now it's just ridiculous. I mean, it's just the insanity of it all. I'll give you a quick example. If you're checking luggage and you have to get in that line to check luggage, oversized luggage, bigger than a carry-on, you have to stand 6 feet apart. But when you get on the plane, you're smashed together.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so what? It's theater. It's all theater.
Absolutely. A guy like me who's 6'2" is going to be sitting on someone's lap. I might as well just be breathing down their neck anyway. So, but there is a white pill in all of this. I don't know if you caught this news story, and I'm not sure how true it is, but these days of fake news, there was, I guess, an airline, maybe it was out of Israel, and there's an Israeli flight where there were 2 underage kids. They were like 2 or 3 years old. And the flight attendants kept telling them to wear a mask, and the kids wouldn't, but as soon as they got kicked off the plane, the entire plane disboarded, which I thought was kind of like, hey, that's almost a protest against, we're not going to take this anymore.
Well, I mean, I would hope it would be a protest against everything. I'm wondering if it was just a protest against, these young children who have 0% chance of contracting the virus. There's no, even if they did, there's no chance of them getting sick and dying of it or having any kind of lasting. And the whole being able to spread thing. I mean, who knows, asymptomatic spread. I mean, that still can't be proven. There's nothing out there to prove that. I'm hoping that I would hope it would be like, okay, we're not going to put up with this anymore. This is stupid. But I have a tendency to believe it was because 2 children were actually being accosted and being forced to do something, which, I mean, I like too. I mean, kids have suffered the most through this. I've said this before. When I go into the supermarket sometimes and I see like toddlers in masks, and I'm just like, that's child abuse. You're just normalizing child abuse. I mean, let that child breathe. Let the child breathe. Come on. This is stupid. The child is not going to get sick and die. And they're not going to carry something home to their grandmother. I mean, it's retarded. I mean, I think the WHO recently said that even if you live in a house with somebody who's tested positive, you have like a 15% chance of contracting it. I mean, that's what does that tell you about this? It just tells you that this thing was overblown. At best, they just didn't know how to stop it because they're incompetent. At worst, nefarious forces are using this, and I think that both are true. I think both can be true at the same time, that there's incompetence involved, and there are nefarious forces who are like, we need to keep this going for as long as we can. And it's really a control thing. It is really a training society to be submissive to the state. I mean, no better example. This people can talk everything they want about after 9/11, the Patriot Act, TSA, all these things. This is infinitely worse. I mean, you could start a movement tomorrow. I think you could start a movement tomorrow to get the TSA disbanded. I think that a lot of people, especially people who travel all the time, would be like, yeah, it's probably a good idea. This is over with, let the airlines deal with security on their own and everything. And you can start a movement. You're not gonna be able to start a movement when people think that there's an invisible enemy out there that's trying to kill them. I think that people they've just, unfortunately, they've been changed forever, and their lives are about fear now. And the ones whose lives aren't about fear they feel like they're brave for standing up to this fight that Donald Trump allowed to happen or whatever. I mean, it's just it wouldn't be hard to think we're in the end times sometimes, because it's just so terrible.
Well, it's interesting because whenever you have a conversation with somebody who might be antithetical to what you and I believe, they might be like, okay, point to a conspiracy. It's like, well, you just mentioned there's probably a lot of incompetence, and there's probably more than one nefarious actor in this just taking advantage of the situation for what it is. I don't think there was just like a ring or a couple of people say, let's just disrupt the whole planet for our own bidding. But like Vin Armani calls it the dim age. So it's like a bunch of partners moving on at the same time. It's really weird.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to, I mean, you do have Event 201 that you can look back on, which is, you can't ignore that. You can't ignore the fact that, 2 months before this virus was actually made public, made public in China, they knew about it and everything. A couple months, it took another month or two before anyone was really talking about it here. Really, the Wall Street Journal was talking about it in January 2020. But, you have this war game scenario of a coronavirus breaking out around the world, and starts in Brazil and starts in pigs, and it starts spreading, and then they're like, oh, so how would we handle it? And well, I mean, it didn't start in Brazil as far as I know, and it didn't spread through pigs as far as I know. But then when you look at Event 201, a lot of the things that they talked about, hey, this is what we need to do, is what they did. And I think it's kind of hard to ignore that. But did someone know something we didn't? And man, it's, there's a lot of coincidences out there, but they're just the fact that so much of what they said that they would do, they ended up doing, is really suspect. And it really makes you wonder. I mean, 2020 was the end of the world. And we live in a new world. And we live in a new world. And the only thing that we can do now is figure out how we navigate that world. And I think navigation is the most important thing in the beginning, and then how we take back what was taken from us. Mm-hmm. And that's a conversation that needs to be had that people just aren't having.
Yeah, nevertheless, though, it is the end of the world, yet you and I are still alive, still talking to microphones and having some level of influence on people. So, where do we go from here? I've seen you kind of evolve in your messaging since this has all started. You talked a lot about philosophy. You talk a lot about the power structure that's in there. Talk a lot about how you were an agorist and you wanted to get away from like politics, but now you're starting to slowly see that there might be a place for it. Why don't you elaborate a little bit on some of that evolution that you've taken place?
Well, yeah, I've written for my Substack about the mistakes I made last year, and I think the biggest mistake was thinking that there was only one way out of this. That there was only one way to get through it, and that would be agorism. And I think agorism is still so important. It's just it provides in times when white markets can't. But I think what we've done is we've reached a point where things are so out of control, so unlike what we've seen before, that really we just have to throw everything up against a wall and see what sticks. If it's political, if it's running a national political candidate who will only talk about liberty and talk about anti-war and talk about how the lockdowns were criminal, things like that. Okay, cool. Getting involved locally and trying to dismantle government at the local level and give people as much liberty as back, fine, that's great too. Getting involved in gray and black markets, awesome. It has to be all of it. It has to be all of it. If you're only doing one thing, it's just, I mean, and one person can do one thing. Okay, you can be like, okay, I'm just going to concentrate on agorism. That's cool. But if you're actively saying, this is the only way to get through it, which I did last year and I apologize for. If you're still sticking with that this is the only way to get through, I think you'd have to prove that. You'd have to prove that the one thing that you're advocating for, and Bitcoin people are like this too. BTC people are like this. Bitcoin is going to it's going to take down the system. It's going to change the world. We're going to have anarchism. We're going to have a libertarian society. I'm okay. I mean, prove it. I mean, lay it out for me how that happens. I mean, sure, the money system is what drives a war state and drives pretty much everything. But you're talking about something that I don't think it would have to have mass adoption, but you would have to have a significant amount of a percentage. It doesn't even have to be half. I don't even know if it has to be 30%, but it would have to be, you'd have to concentrate it into small areas. And I mean, I think people already realize that because, the Keene 6 up in New Hampshire, New Hampshire is a state that has decriminalized, I mean, basically deregulated anything crypto related. So if you have a business that runs on crypto, they no regulation. If you anything you want to do with crypto, I've been up there, bought alcohol at bars with crypto, everything like that, anything. So it's deregulated. Well, these guys had BTC ATMs up there, and 100% legal, 100% allowable, no regulation at all. The feds came in and said, nope, money laundering, and a friend of mine who's a lawyer went through it, and they actually refer in the federal indictment to Bitcoin as a controlled substance. So obviously they think that, they're going to do everything they can. And, usually whenever the government fights against something, it just becomes a little bit stronger, or maybe not stronger, but it becomes more, I would say expensive, but it increases the value of it. It increases the demand of it, so to a certain extent. So, if you want to make the argument that it's Bitcoin that's going to bring, I mean, I need to see a solid argument. I haven't seen one, even in that stupid book. And yeah, I mean, I just think that it's everything. I think that everybody should be concentrating on something, and everybody should be supporting everything. I support the Bitcoin people. I support cryptocurrency people. I support anyone who's doing anything political action. I support the agorists. I support the people who just post memes on Twitter, and they're trying to do something when it seems like it's impossible. And I think it's all of it. So yeah, I mean, I made some mistakes last year saying that agorism was the only way. That was just one of the, it was a mistake, but hey, just own up to your mistakes and move on. I mean, that's being an adult.
Right. I think the idea is not only just owning up to your mistakes, but being able to change your philosophy as new information comes.
Sure.
One of the things that I noticed and I'm going to intentionally crap on a political party today because I just don't understand. I was obviously part of the Libertarian Party for a while, but they have this idea that there's going to be this Ancapistan, right? That there's going to be this utopia.
Actually, the whole point of a political party is that you're going to be in party politics, and that you would vote and you would do. I mean, there are anarchists who are in the Libertarian Party. And I know a lot of people think that's a contradiction. I don't care. I really don't care what those people think. But I don't think that the Libertarian Party, I don't hear anyone in the Libertarian Party saying that through the Libertarian Party, we're going to get Ancapistan. I think that if anything, the messaging of the Libertarian Party up until Dave Smith really got involved and started talking was complete garbage, and there was no vision whatsoever. I mean, they were becoming woke leftists, and they still are. I mean, there's still some people in there who are just, anti-racism and trans rights and all this collectivist kind of stuff that every time the government tries to address, we need to help this group, that group always turns out to become destroyed. Just look at the Great Society in the 60s. But I don't think the Libertarian Party the goal of them has been Ancapistan. If anything, I think the thing that you can say about the Libertarian Party is that they had no plan whatsoever on how to do anything, and they were just literally just had no focus whatsoever. I mean, it's a social club at this point. With what the Libertarian Party Mises Caucus is doing, I think they're trying to, and they're working with some prags, they're working with some of the radical caucus. I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to make it a focus, because up until, I would say, 3 or 4 months ago, there was no focus there. I mean, some local candidates would get elected, but I don't know how much that had to do with the work of the Libertarian Party as much as, independent people working to get people elected. I think the Libertarian Party needs a focus, but I don't think that focus is going to be, we can get to Ancapistan if we just, go through the Libertarian Party. I don't really know anybody who puts that message out there.
I really stopped paying attention to political parties because I just don't think that any kind of political party is the true answer. And especially, as you mentioned, that the messaging for 2020 was just all wrong. We started this talking about the masks and the lockdowns, and I don't think I remember one thing that the Libertarian Party had ever said anything against the lockdowns or against masks or anything like that. So,
they're pro-mask. I mean, I was at the Libertarian Party convention in Georgia, and the chair of the National Party, Joe Bishop Henchman, was in attendance. He showed up, and he sat there in a mask the whole time. And pretty much almost everyone in that crowd wasn't wearing a mask. And the people who were wearing masks were not looking at other people and thinking, why, or looking at them, giving them looks like, why aren't you wearing a mask? Don't you know how dangerous this is? No, I think they just chose to wear a mask because, maybe some health issue or something like that. But there were clearly people there wearing masks because they're doing it in solidarity. They want to show the rest of society that libertarians aren't weirdos. So we're going to pander to you by putting a diaper on our face. And I think that's a stupid message, because the people who want to wear a diaper are all leftists, and pandering to the left is stupid. The left are psychopaths. They want you dead. They want your children raped, and they think it's funny. Stop pandering to these people. They suck. Okay. I mean, they should be let off a cliff somewhere. And I mean, if they get the right leader preaching their message, they'll friggin' walk off a cliff for that person. So.
Right. And so I wonder who that leader may be. Although I've checked out Angela McArdle a little bit and some of the other names, but like I said, Pete, I really distance myself from politics just because I just don't think that's the way. I'm not a full agorist or anything like that, but I do welcome the messages, like you said, from all different walks of life, because doing something is the only way to get out of this. Make ourselves sane.
If you don't want to be a part of the party, if you don't think that it's worth it, that's fine. Actively, like, going on social media and saying, anyone who's doing it's an idiot, or putting down people who that's the path that they're choosing to take. I mean, that's the same thing as if I just got on Twitter and I started going, those of you choosing agorism, morons. I mean, why would I do that? Why would I do that? Why would I put down people that I pretty much fundamentally agree with 90 to 95%, but I don't agree with on 5%? Why would I make enemies for 5%?
Right. That's a good philosophy. You don't want to be making enemies. I've been listening to the Unloose the Goose podcast a lot. And of course, Jack Spirko and John Bush, they've been saying the same message I think you've been saying for a while. Is one thing I resonate to is just get out of the city, right? Move out of the cities, move out of the suburbs. I think that's, for me, is really the direction I want to go, whether I become, full agorist or not, and working in a black and gray markets. Just these people around here, they just drive me crazy. They're looking at me like I want to kill him. They're looking at me like, this guy is, he's evil. Or, I'm a Trump supporter, even though I don't even own a red hat, never had any kind of red hat.
Well, what's funny is August of last year, I thought to myself, all right, enough of this. I need to escape to the mountains. I'm going to go to the Georgia mountains, and I'm going to just take 3 or 4 days. I can do some writing, and I can just get away from all this mass craziness and everything. So I went to a small town in the Georgia mountains. Yeah, I forgot that a lot of old people retire to the Georgia mountains. So the mass craziness was there, and I don't know, maybe things are different now. Who knows? I haven't been up to the mountains in a while, but I thought I was escaping the Atlanta and Atlanta surrounding area craziness. And no, I just went right up into the mountains, and there it was, still there. And every grocery store and coffee shop I went into in like this really small town, just people loaded up wearing their diapers proudly. In that case, a lot of people probably wearing them on their face and other places too. So
right. So there's no escaping this, you're saying. So that's another black pill there, Pete. It's everywhere.
Well, you just have to hack the culture. Somebody hacked the culture back in March of last year. Somebody has to rehack the culture and give them meaning.
You've talked about that idea of hacking the culture on a couple of your shows, and I like where you were going when you were talking with Vin about the mysticism of particularly the Declaration of Independence. That was a culture hack back then, and we need to kind of revert back to that.
Sure. Declaration of Independence says that we hold these truths to be self-evident, creator, all this stuff that can't be proven. It's like, we hold these truths to be self-evident. Well, that can't really be proven, right? You're just making a statement where you're like, I believe this. It's self-evident. You can't convince me otherwise. Okay, sure. Yeah. Hey, we've been endowed by our creator. Okay. What creator? We don't have to explain that to you. So, hey, I think it's a good idea to go back to that. Especially, not so much on the left in this country, but definitely people who lean more towards the right. You start talking about the Declaration of Independence, they'll listen. Their first impulse won't be that was written by slave owners. It was written by a slave owner, which is what you'll hear from people on the left. And maybe going back to that kind of simplicity, pledge my life, my fortune, and my sacred honor kind of thing. Maybe people want that again. Who knows? We shall see. Got to concoct a message and have a delivery system that is widespread. I mean, you can do it on a lot of podcasts, and there are a lot of podcasts with amazing amount of reach, libertarian podcasts, and Dave, Tom, huge reach. But until you're getting on like the Joe Rogans of the world, or you're talking about it on Fox Business or something like that, on Kennedy's show, people aren't going to hear it on a wide scale. So yeah, I mean, messaging is important, and hopefully we can start at the grassroots and start getting some people to adopt that, getting some people to create their own language on how to spread that message. But until we can really get in front of a lot of people and get that message in front of a lot of people, it's just going to be a good theory, and we can plan it and try and iron it out and tweak it as much as possible.
Well, obviously, your show has a lot more reach than mine does. You've been around for a while, but more importantly than just a podcast, I think that you're finally making it into the mainstream. I wanted to talk a little bit about your previous work, The Monopoly on Violence, that documentary. When you and I first started talking, it had not been released yet. But the funny thing is that right after the George Floyd incident is when that thing came out, and I think it was really good timing. In fact, the day that it came, I think it showed up on it was either on Netflix or maybe it was Amazon the first day. I don't know, maybe YouTube. I can't remember, Pete, to be honest with you. But the very first day that my wife and I saw that was the day that the George Floyd protesting started coming out to our neighborhood. And I live in a nice, upper class suburban neighborhood, and we got all the protesters out there. I'm thinking all hell's going to break loose like it has on the Saturdays. But then my wife and I just relaxed and started watching The Monopoly on Violence, which I think had a tremendous impact. A good way to tell people about what's going on in the world.
It was released on June 1st, which was probably a week after the riots started, from what I understand, if I remember correctly. And we released it to YouTube. It took, we immediately had the one we released to YouTube had some sound issues, leveling issues. So we had someone work on that and get it perfect. And then we submitted it to Amazon, and it took 6 months. I mean, I can get conspiratorial about it and say they didn't want to release it until after the election or whatever. But it is available now on Amazon streaming. Amazon Prime streaming. If you don't have Prime, it's I think $2.99 or something like that to rent it. And I think it came out better than I thought it would, because you never know what the finished product is going to look like, especially when you're shooting it and piecing it together. So it came out better than I thought, and positive. I mean, we over 100,000 views on YouTube. I haven't checked the I don't check it. Chris Kofer checks and sees what our download numbers or what our view numbers are on Amazon. I don't even remember what he said the last time, but I know a lot of people are recommending it because it's on Amazon now. I don't know that this could get on Netflix. We'd probably need to hire a lawyer, and it would be expensive. It would have to be the right lawyer, and still don't know if we'd have to get it on Netflix. But the next one, the one that we're producing now, we started production on, will be aimed towards a mainstream. It's not going to be an anarchist or a libertarian documentary. It will be a mainstream documentary. So we don't think in, taking on the subject of the police, we think that, and especially a critical eye towards the police, we think that this will be much more well received, and we'll have a better chance of immediately going on to Amazon and even Netflix if it's received well. And we'll see. So I think the documentary side of everything that I'm doing is really important, because people watch documentaries, and I remember a time when the only people who watch documentaries were like weirdos and everything, and now it's become like almost mainstream that people like to watch documentaries. So I think that there's a lot of people who would rather watch a documentary than actually even listen to a podcast. So yeah, I think we're going to concentrate on that.
Well, I mean, so somebody like me, I've been outside in the world since day one of the apocalypse, just because I have to. I can't stay. I can't make a transition into the fully digital. That's where everyone wants us to be, right? So everything is being broadcast virtually. You know, all your meetings are broadcast virtually. So I want to get out in the world. So I'm still able to listen to podcasts, but most people, they're not going to the gym. They're not driving to work. They're staying at home. So when you actually have some kind of format like that, a documentary, I think that the exposure will be greater in that aspect. So,
sure, I think the documentaries were really picking up also before all of this. So I think that people are it'll be something that'll be around, a medium that people will be interested in for a while. And you know, we may even shoot a feature length movie this year. Who knows?
Well, that would be good. That's keeping you busy, right?
Yeah.
So. Awesome. Well, Pete, you know, there's just stuff that we can just talk about all day long. You know, the state of the world being what it is. I like to keep the white pill perspective. My show is generally more positive. That's why when I say things like blessings, you look at me like, I don't know. I'm always trying to look at the bright side of things.
Well, I like positive blessings, but you seem to make it think. I mean, I guess you can make the argument that, hey, if people are going to be locked up in their homes, at least give them something that's beneficial to watch and everything. But I don't want people to be locked up in their homes, man. I want people to be out and living their lives, you know?
Absolutely. So what do you see for the future? I mean, do you think that this will ever end? Do you think that people are going to get back to normal? I know that Jack Spirko sometimes says that the word normal is just like, it makes him cringe. And I understand why he's saying that, because what is normal? But what are some of the white pills you could drop?
I mean, hopefully what we're seeing with, and Tom Woods mentioned this on an episode I did with him this past week, that, you know, even I'm completely against these vaccines. They're not even vaccines. They're friggin' lab experiments, experiments in gene therapy, it almost seems. But he mentioned that, you know, that a lot of old people, he sees a lot of old people in Florida coming back out, and it's because they've gotten a vaccine and they're like, hey, you know, so I'm gonna get back. So, you know, maybe there is, I mean, I'm not getting the thing. I'm not in the risk category. And really, I don't want to be experimented on. So if people think that, hey, I got this and now I can go back out, well, maybe that's a positive. Maybe it's people being like, hey, as long as I got this thing, I don't care what Fauci says. I got the vaccine. I'm good. I'm going out. And we'll start seeing people do that and stop putting so much stock in what these people have to say. You know, like I said, I mean, it's not even a vaccine. It's just not. And if that makes people feel, you know, it's like the mask, you know, some of us were like, well, if, you know, just to stop the lockdowns, people wear masks and everything. It's like, I mean, but it's kind of hard to have a white pill when you're looking at that and you're just like, okay, so we hate the word normal because there's really nothing that's normal. Everything always changes. So normal is a terrible word, actually, because if things are always changing, there's really no normal. And I mean, I really think that I'm just hoping against what would seem like all hope, that people in mass are just going to start waking up and start saying, you know, this is just ridiculous. And hopefully if they start in again and they're like, well, you know, the things are going to be, you know, there could be another strain coming and everything like that. People are just like, look, I don't want to live like I'm dead. I don't want to live like a mushroom. I just want to go live my life. And the one thing, I guess the biggest black pill that I have is that these quote unquote private businesses, even if they're not being told by the government, hey, make people wear masks, make people stand 6 feet apart, just for CYA purposes, just so that they don't get sued. They're going to keep this going because, they're worried about litigation. They're worried about, or they're just worried that a certain segment of the population, if Kroger starts ending their putting their mask required signs out, a certain percent of the population will stop shopping there. I just think that I don't see these companies, the places where we do business and where we buy things, I don't see them abandoning this, even if the public en masse started saying, we need to dial this back a little bit. That's my black pill. But my white pill is, I think that there's going to be a certain segment of the population that's just going to be like, screw this, man. We can't do this anymore. Mm-hmm. And hopefully we can get a message to them of some old school liberty, some old school, hold these truths to be self-evident, and maybe re-spark a revolution.
I like how Dave Smith said at one time, for the people who are completely black pilled, he's always like, well, you could like kill yourself. Yeah. And if that's not an option, then we have no choice but to go forward. Right. But I don't think that we're going to live in misery forever. I think that I still believe, or at least I want to believe, that there is a small sliver of that liberty mindset within the American population. We're seeing it fade away very quickly and indoctrinated out of us. But just part of me believes that this isn't going to last forever. The world is going to change. There's no doubt about that. But I don't think we're going to go full totalitarianism. Some would argue we're already there.
Yeah, well, I hope not. I just I think that if the last year has taught us anything, is the government doesn't even have to go full totalitarian. Your neighbors will police you.
Right. Well, that's why we got to get better neighbors, build our community from the ground up.
I hear you, man.
So, all right, Pete. Well, I appreciate the conversation. Anything you want to plug?
Free Man Beyond the Wall podcast, americaspolicecrisis.com. That is where the funding is for our next documentary. Our Indiegogo ended. We were short, so we're still taking donations there. And I have a Substack. It's pquinones.substack.com. And you can support my work on my website at freemanbeyondthewall.com/store. I actually have my own kind of Patreon kind of thing set up for monthly or yearly donations, and keeps the censors away.
All right. Well, Pete, you're a very hardworking man, and I appreciate the effort that you're putting into this movement, however you want to call it. And, I'll let you have the rest of your day and enjoy the afternoon.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much, Michael.
All right. Thank you.